South Korea, and you're watching our latest edition of Arirang News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kwon Jang-woo. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un again over the weekend. According to South Korea's Blue House, they spent a total of 5.5 hours together. And although both parties seem satisfied with the outcome, only a few details have been revealed on any agreements reached. For more on that and the other stories of the day, we now go over to our news centre, where Devin Whiting has the latest headlines. Devin?
Hi, Jang-ho. Pompeo briefed South Korean President Moon Jae-in after that meeting with Kim Jong-un. And yes, while we don't know much about it yet, it looks like Kim Jong-un and President Trump will be meeting for a second time before too long. Choi Si-young reports.
Another step forward. That's how U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo described his one-day stay in Pyongyang to President Moon Jae-in. Welcoming Pompeo to Seoul on Sunday, President Moon said it was an important moment for the three relevant parties, the two Koreas and the U.S.
폼페이오 장관님의 방북과 앞으로 곧 있을 제2차 미북 정상회담이 한반도의 비핵화와 평화 프로세스에서 되돌아갈 수 없는 결정적인 진전을 만들어내는 좋은 계기가 되기를 기대합니다.
Pompeo said it was extremely important he held talks with the leaders of the Koreas in a row, as Seoul plays a leading role in the region's denuclearization.
But we had a good, productive conversation. As President Trump has said, there are many steps along the way, and we took one of them today. It was another step forward, and so this is, I think, a good outcome for all of us.
South Korea's presidential office said Pompeo agreed with the North to hold a second summit as early as possible, and that working-level talks on shaping the summit are expected soon. It also said Pompeo discussed further steps of the regime's denuclearization as well as the issue of the U.S. government being present throughout those steps. Though the main aspects of the meeting between Kim Jong-un and Pompeo, like the shape and form of the next summit or the corresponding measures from Washington, have not been disclosed, Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang was reportedly better than the last. Citing a U.S. official who had accompanied Pompeo to Pyongyang, Reuters reports progress was made, but added it's going to be a long haul. Speculation now lingers on when the next Kim-Trump summit will happen, with most watchers expecting it to happen before the U.S. midterm elections on November 6. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
And President Moon said in this morning's cabinet meeting that Secretary Pompeo's weekend visit to Pyongyang established the conditions for a second Kim-Trump summit in the near future. Moon also stressed that now is the time for South Korea to work with other countries to achieve denuclearization and lasting peace on the peninsula. Take a listen.
지구상에 남은 마지막 냉전 체제를 해체할 수 있도록 미국 외의 다른 관련국들과 협력해 나가는 데에도 적극적인 노력을 기울여야 하겠습니다.
According to President Moon, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is expected to visit Russia, and Chinese President Xi Jinping will visit North Korea soon. He said a summit between North Korea and Japan could be possible too, as a new order is created in Northeast Asia. Meanwhile, representatives of South Korea's ruling party, the government, and the presidential office met this morning to discuss a variety of issues, including diplomacy with North Korea. They see some positive developments on that front. They also looked at the South Korean economy, which is going through tough times. Shin Se-min reports.
The talking points during the year's fifth high-level three-way talks between the ruling Democratic Party of Korea, the government, and the presidential office focused on two issues: the latest on North Korea and the current state of the South Korean economy. Representing the top office, the president's national security chief Chung Eui-yong said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's latest visit to the North was confirmed to be a fruitful and productive one. He added that the denuclearization process will have gained momentum, especially with the second round of North Korea's Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump summit likely to take place in the near future. The security chief also said he will do his part in making Kim Jong-un's recent promise to visit Seoul by the year's end a reality. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon wished for swift progress in ratifying the Panmunjom Declaration, already submitted to the National Assembly by the government, adding that the approval of Parliament is a necessity for bringing peace and prosperity to the region. The head of the ruling party, Lee Hae-chan, who also returned from the north as part of the South Korean delegation to commemorate the October 4th summit declaration, said that he had felt Pyongyang had shifted from a confrontational standoff to a mood of peaceful coexistence. The representatives of the three sides also discussed the current economic situation in the South, the overheated property market, and efforts to tackle the high unemployment rate. With major economic indicators reflecting the country's tight circumstances, even leading major international financial institutions to cut South Korea's growth forecast, the participants have voiced their will to thoroughly study the situation and minimize the fallout of such economic challenges. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
In other news, the authorities in Japan are planning to release radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea. It's not clear exactly when that would happen, but the plan has met opposition from locals in Japan and from the South Korean government. Efforts to decontaminate the water have proven ineffective. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Despite reports, treated water at the Fukushima nuclear plant needed to be decontaminated even more before it can be released into the sea. The Japan government has decided to release it anyway. The Japan-based newspaper Mainichi Shimbun reports that Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority chief told reporters recently that the authority plans to release the water once the radiation levels are lower. However, he added the authority doesn't think more distillation or dilution will help, nor does he think it's necessary. Almost 85% of the water is said to contain dangerously high levels of radioactive materials. According to the plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Corporation, about 161,000 tons of the treated water is 10 to 100 times over the limit for release into the environment, and another 65,000 tons is up to 20,000 times the limit. The release option faced heavy criticism at town meetings in Fukushima and Tokyo in August, when TEPCO and the Japanese government officials provided little explanation about the contamination. TEPCO says it has the capacity to store up to 1.37 million tons of water through 2020, and it cannot stay at the plant forever. South Korea expressed its concerns over Japan's decision last week.
The ocean is not the property of one country but a shared resource of the world. Releasing contaminated water into the sea is likely to have a significant impact on the marine environment and the safety of marine products.
Some experts say the water can be stored for decades, but others say the tanks take up too much space and could interfere with ongoing decommissioning work, which the Japanese government hopes to finish before the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
With the United States continuing to tighten its monetary policy, its 10-year yields are at the highest they've been in 7 years, prompting concerns about financial instability in some emerging markets. But a study by the Bank of Korea suggests the possibility of a currency crisis spreading in emerging markets is low. Countries with relatively high foreign debt, like Turkey and Argentina, did show signs of a currency crisis, but the BOK says, unlike the so-called taper tantrum seen in 2013, the drop in stocks and the number of countries affected by those concerns was limited. The study says South Korea's capital markets remain stable, supported by a healthy current account surplus and ample foreign reserves. But it noted that the ongoing U.S.-China trade spat is still a downside risk. I'm Devin Whitey, and those are your news headlines.
North Korea has agreed to an inspection of one of its nuclear facilities that's already been dismantled to prove the process is irreversible. That was one of the main publicly revealed outcomes of the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's fourth visit to Pyongyang on Sunday. Little else has been announced, but both sides seem satisfied with the talks so far. Lee Ji-won has more.
North Korea has invited inspectors to visit the Punggye-ri nuclear test site to confirm it has been irreversibly dismantled. After U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to the north on Sunday, the State Department said Pompeo and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held productive discussions on the four elements contained in the Singapore joint statement, as well as the upcoming second summit between President Donald Trump and Kim. Many watchers are viewing Pompeo's fourth visit to Pyongyang as quite successful, as it may signal the North is open to inspection and verification. The test site is where all of the regime's 6 nuclear tests have been conducted, and back in May, Pyongyang blew up the site, also destroying security checkpoints and other facilities. Despite the North's voluntary moves thus far, many are still skeptical it may be a show, which could be reversed as there were no inspectors or experts present at the site, only reporters. To make further progress, Kim and Pompeo also agreed to instruct their respective working level teams to meet soon to intensify discussions on the key remaining issues. The North also seemed satisfied with Sunday's talks. On Monday, North Korea's state-run media Korean Central News Agency reported on the meeting, adding Kim expressed satisfaction over the productive and wonderful talks with Pompeo, where their mutual stance were fully understood. Kim also reportedly expressed his belief that a good program will be arranged sooner or later for his second summit with President Trump. Pyongyang's reactions are in stark contrast to Pompeo's last visit in July, where North Korea slammed the U.S. delegates for only seeking unilateral demands. But what Washington gave the North in exchange for the inspection of Punggye-ri is still unclear. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, to further dissect these latest developments, we have with us Dr. Bong Young-sik from the Yonsei Institute for North Korean Studies. It's great to have you back on the show.
Pleased to be here again.
So the talks between Pompeo and Kim Jong-un seem to have gone quite well. Both Pompeo and the North Korean state media have reviewed it as positively. But there have been very few specifics about what has come out of it. What is your take on the talks between Pompeo and Kim Jong-un?
Well, I wouldn't really see everything in positive light because when in the world of diplomacy, both sides use the term having open and good, productive conversation. That means they collided with their opposing views. So being productive means that they had a good opportunity to express their side of demand and stories and vice versa. So that having a good and productive conversation does not necessarily mean that both sides seems to narrow their perceptive and the strategic gap on important issues. So I believe that considering how short Secretary Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang was, then both sides were focused on just ventilating or clearly expressing their own views on important issues since the U.S. DPRK summit meeting on June 12 in Singapore. And if there are some daylights, then I would highlight two things. One, they are talking to each other. It's better than the time when Secretary Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang was suddenly canceled because it happened. So I would say that that's a positive development. Borrowing Secretary's own word, it's just another step forward. Another one is that they agree on pursuing the second summit meeting between Washington and Pyongyang. When? We do not know. But the President of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, urged Secretary Pompeo to help that summit meeting to take place at the earliest convenient time. So South Korean President urging the United States Secretary of State that summit meeting is hoped to take place at an earliest possible time means that the United States does not seem to rush to make it happen at the earliest time.
Still, they did meet for 5.5 hours, the Blue House revealed. That includes a lunch in the middle that they had together. So 5.5 hours, that means a lot of time for discussions.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. And what kind of details has been reported to the public? So given the substantial amount of time that the South Korean government and the U.S. Secretary of State had, 5.5 hours, and the amount of details about potentially very groundbreaking or significant development about either U.S.-DPRK relationship or North Korea's pursuit of complete and verifiable denuclearization. These two things are not in balance, in my personal opinion. 5.5 hours, and there's not many details available to the general public and the reporters. That means that they are not really on the same page, although they are security partners, Seoul and Washington are. And another indication is that Secretary Pompeo made the first visit not to Seoul but Tokyo, and they agreed on maintaining the existing very tough economic sanctions on North Korea unless North Korea is moving another concrete and verifiable step toward a complete and verifiable denuclearization. Then Pompeo flew to Pyongyang, then Seoul. And now he and his delegation are in Beijing. So judging from this itinerary of the Secretary Pompeo's travel in East Asia, I don't think Seoul and Washington are 100% on the same page in dealing with nuclear North Korea.
Let's look at one of the details that was announced between the Pompeo and Kim's talks. So one of the agreements that has been announced by the US State Department is that Kim has invited inspectors to check the Punggye-ri nuclear test site that was blown up in front of international reporters earlier this year. Now, when the site was blown up, obviously there was some criticism that reporters, not inspectors, were invited to witness it. How do you rate the significance of this concession by Kim Jong-un?
I wouldn't give too much weight of significance on this North Korea's announcement because this is supposed to have been completed many months ago because it is North Korea's lack of preparation and understanding of expectation outside the country that if you're going to blow one of the most watched WMD production facility in the world, which is Punggye-ri nuclear test site, then you are supposed to follow the regular and mainstream international procedures, which is to make it fully verified. But North Korean authority refused to bring in nuclear experts. So there has been a criticism that without participation and observation of the nuclear experts from third parties, then these reporters lack the capability or the expertise to actually verify that the nuclear test site in Punggye-ri had been indeed irreversibly and completely destroyed. So it is North Korean government's fault to have to do it again in order to earn the basic trust from the United States that the basic four elements of the Singapore summit meeting are just taking baby steps. And another point is that in the summit meeting with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in, North Korean authority also agreed to invite the outside observers about the dismantlement of the missile test site in the Dongchang-ri. That also was supposed to have already been completed. So from the outside perspective, North Korea has not really completed basic agreements that Chairman Kim Jong-un allegedly had made to his counterpart, US President Donald Trump, in Singapore summit meeting. So if North Korea is genuinely interested in earning and enhancing trust from the United States and other countries so that there will be agreement made by Washington and other related parties about formally declare the end of the Korean War, then North Korea has a lot more homework to do.
Isn't there some argument to say that these small developments, these small agreements, are just small steps that need to be taken for the bigger picture? And in fact, there might also be other agreements that are in the works behind the scenes that haven't yet been revealed.
Well, I like to cite the slogan of the sports good company, Adidas, impossible is nothing. Nothing is impossible, but I wonder why that we have to force ourselves to believe that there must be something else. There must be something more important, unspoken, or not made available to general public or media. But it has been such a long time to for us to giving the benefit of doubt to North Korean authority when it comes to North Korea's genuine intention and determination to move forward complete denuclearization in exchange for all kinds of concessions from other countries. So I think now it's time, since North Korea did have, for the first time in history, summit meeting with the President of the United States. So I think now the ball is in the court of North Korean authority to follow the commonsensical and international standard to announce its intention to pursue common interest without other related parties, rather than just remain silent and let the outside observers and related party to keep on guessing its true intentions.
You mentioned there the summit with Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un previously. One of the aims for this supposed meeting as well was to maybe work towards a date and location. And Pompeo and North Korean media have both said that they are working towards some sort of second summit between Trump and Kim. So wouldn't they, do you think it's still on? Do you think it could still happen? Or does the fact that they still haven't got a date or location or any hint of one, that's still concerning?
Well, I'll bet my lunch money that it's going to happen. But the term near future can be interpreted in many different ways. A near future can mean many months or even years or never, right? I would be very surprised that it's going to happen very soon, as the South Korean government and North Korean government would hope. Because the political calendar and the utility of having another summit with North Korea without assured guarantee of positive outcomes coming out of it, then the United States government has no reason to rush the process. I think that is the reason why Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States, brought the special representative for North Korea, Mr. Stephen Biegun, with him. So now the level of the negotiation has been lowered by the United States from the level of president to level of Secretary of State. Now you have special representative as a main point man. So working level negotiations to set up the second summit meeting between North Korea and the United States is likely to take place in Vienna. We do not know how long that working level negotiation will take place. So the term near future may mean many different things. And another indication that the second summit meeting between President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un may not happen in the next few months is the remark by President Moon Jae-in of South Korea, that he announced that he expects that Chairman Kim Jong-un would visit Russia, and the President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, is likely to visit North Korea. And we cannot rule out the summit meeting between Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea and Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. If those summit meetings are in line to take place, then there's no room for the second summit meeting between Trump and Kim to get in. Conversely, we can expect that the very reason why South Korean president making references to summit meetings, plural, summit meetings that South Korea are not directly involved, is to give a kind of hopeful message to the world that high-level negotiations and conversation are going to continue. So something is not right if we're expecting the second summit meeting between U.S. President and leader of North Korea to take place in immediate future.
When you mentioned something isn't right, there's also something different about this Pompeo and Kim Jong-un meeting as well. One person that was missing in the meeting was Kim Young-chol. He's Kim Jong-un's right-hand man, and he's always been there when dealing with the US and these talks as well. But this time he wasn't there, only Kim Yo-jong, his sister, and an interpreter was there. Again, should that be read as a negative interpretation of the situation?
Well, I would say that it's both negative and positive. Negative in a sense that the involvement of Kim Young-chol as the main point man for North Korea did not work. Not only for North Korea to maximize its interest and leverage upon the United States, but in terms of moving the entire denuclearization process and the process of the restoring the mutual trust between Washington and Pyongyang not going well. So I believe that North Korean authority is now changing the approach to its engagement with the United States by getting the sister of the top leader, Ms. Kim Yo-jong, on board. So in that regard, it is a positive development that North Korean leadership is going to take a new approach.
Pompeo has now traveled to Beijing to brief China on the outcome of that meeting with Kim Jong-un. And before he heads back to the US, Also, the North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee also went to Moscow and meeting with officials from China and Russia as well. So, I mean, where does all this China now fit into this as well? How will China take Pompeo coming to visit and brief them on the situation?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between Beijing and Washington in terms of how much pressure of economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation must be continued in order for North Korea to make very productive and positive changes for denuclearization and the construction of the sustainable peace regime in Northeast Asia. I think there will be a clash between Secretary Pompeo and Chinese government officials in terms of how to deal with North Korea. But at the same time, it'll be, I believe, very difficult for Russian government and the Chinese government to be the first mover to dilute the impact of economic sanctions on North Korea. Then the country will be singled out by the Trump administration as deviant from the international consensus and coordination to realize final and fully verifiable denuclearization of North Korea. So I suspect neither the Russian government nor Chinese government is ready to take that gamble at this point.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you for coming in, and it's always great to get your insights and perspective.
You're welcome.
And that's where we'll leave it. On Tuesday, South Korea celebrates Hangul Day, a day celebrating the creation of the Korean alphabet. So I'll be back Wednesday, but do stay tuned to Arirang for our later newscast for all the latest updates. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon. Goodbye.
Literally